This is the face of someone who takes joy in her destruction.
Here in Arizona, the temperatures are still in the mid-80s. So while it doesn't feel like it, it's actually October and almost Halloween. I don't usually do a lot for Halloween, but this year my boyfriend's niece, his sister's daughter, asked me to make her a costume. She is 5 years old, super cute, but she's very tall for her age and also quite skinny for her age. So she's like a little string bean, like if you took a normal person and like stretched them. That's what she is. She's basically 22 inches all the way down. So because of this, a lot of clothes and costumes don't fit her well. Because of this, she asked me to make her a costume, a Princess Peach costume. I didn't really grow up playing Mario Kart, but she and her brother love it, so of course I obliged. For the dress, I thrifted a light pink polyester cotton bedsheet set and a dark pink polyester satiny kind of curtain thingamabob. I'm not really sure what it was, but it was cheap and it was the right color. Then I ripped out all the trim and spread the fabric on the floor so I could get a clear picture of what I was working with. And suddenly, out of nowhere, a wild cat appears! As you may know, cats are legally obligated to sit on every single piece of material that you set down on the ground. And well, I have 2 cats, so you can imagine the ensuing chaos.
You have no remorse. No remorse for what your claws do to my fabric. None. This is the face of someone who takes joy in her destruction. Right? Right, baby. Oh dear. Oh dear. Ouch. I deserve that.
The first thing I did was make the skirt. I went with a simple circle skirt, which you make by folding the fabric into 4, then marking the hem and the waist circumferences, and then cutting along those lines. I made the skirt as long as the fabric would allow because Peach is a princess, and princesses need long, luxurious skirts. As you can see here, it is almost long enough for me. I got my sewing machine set up with the help of Wednesday, although we were both too lazy to actually go find pink thread and decided that the tan that was already in there would just be fine enough for the job. I gathered the top of the skirt by setting my machine to the longest stitch setting possible, then running a basting stitch around the top of the skirt. When basting, make sure never to backstitch because you need to be able to grab one of the ends and pull, kind of shimmying the fabric along so that it gathers and makes it look all nice and scrunched up. I used an extremely wrinkled piece of paper that I think came out of a Chewy box to draft a simple bodice. The 2 measurements I used were neck to waist length and then chest circumference, and then I made a generic kind of armhole shape because I knew there wasn't a lot of fancy shaping that needed to be done with this, and I would be trying it on her again later just to make sure everything fit properly. After I cut the front and 2 halves of the back out of the light pink fabric, I did a similar process for the sleeves. I made the sleeves very wide so that I would be able to gather them and get them to be nice and poofy, just like the Princess Peach costume. I gathered the tops of the sleeves just like I gathered the skirt, and then I sewed all of those pieces together. Then I had the child try it on and made some adjustments to the pattern. Then I put a pause in this project because my sister came to visit me for a week. Here is a video of her learning how to throw a cut at my sword fighting club. Ta-da! And then I went to Pennsylvania with her to visit the rest of my family for a week. After my vacation was over and I returned to Arizona, I got back to work. Princess Peach has a very full skirt, and the easiest way for me to achieve that silhouette was to make a hoop skirt to go underneath the main dress. To make the hoop skirt, I bought 2 yards of cotton muslin, ripped it in half, and used 1/2 to make the skirt. I cut 6 2-yard pieces of 1.5-inch ribbon. I used 5 of the pieces to make equally spaced channels for the hoops to go through, and the remaining piece to make a drawstring waist. I made the hoops out of some polyethylene tubing that I found in the plumbing section of Lowe's. Unfortunately, I didn't get great pictures, but here's what the finished hoop skirt looked like. Then I went back to the skirt and sewed what felt like 47 miles of pink trim around the bottom edge. Then I made evenly spaced gathers all around the trim to make it even more ruffly. Here's a picture of me thinking that the skirt is too long, but then I added some more gathers and it was fine. Then I made some clip-on earrings using hot glue and some flat back gems and clip-on earring bases that I found at Michael's. They turned out surprisingly cute, and I was half tempted to keep them for myself for a second there. I made a new bodice pattern using the adjustments from the fitting and made it one piece to save myself a few seams. In retrospect, making the bodice one piece wasn't a good idea because sleeves are actually easier to sew in when there is a side seam that you can open and close later, but it's fine, it worked out, and it still looked good in the end. Here is a video of me trying to figure out how to make those hip cover thingies, I don't know what they're called, that are on Peach's costume. I ended up cutting the fabric in 4 half circles because it wasn't wide enough for 2 circles, then sewing 2 of those half circles together, and then gathering the top of each half circle and then sewing that to the bodice. I forgot to get a video of how I made this little neck ruffle thingy, so you'll have to use your imagination. But I made it, and then I sewed it onto the neckline. In order to get the neck ruffle to lay correctly, I had to top stitch it, which meant that I had to stop being lazy and go dig up my pink thread so I could switch it out with the tan in order to match the color of the dress, because the top stitch is visible on the outside, unlike all the other seams. I made the ruffle longer than it needed to be because I didn't know the exact length of the neckline, but then I was able to trim it down to match the seam. I then set in the sleeves pretty much the same way I did the first time. I was peacefully sewing along, and then suddenly my sewing machine woke up and chose violence and decided to eat one of my pins. Okay, I can't see it. Okay, you can't see what's happening, but what happened is that, pull this out of the tripod for a second, is that the pin got stuck under there, and I have to figure out how to get it out. Okay. I'm gonna go fix that now. It was jammed up there pretty good, but I was able to get it with my pliers and return to sewing. With my sewing machine working properly, I made all the finishing touches to the bodice. I attached the hip thingies to the hem of the bodice so that they would be sandwiched between the bodice and the skirt, and it would look nice. Also, if anyone knows what the proper name for these hip cover thingies is, let me know. I'm curious, and a Google search didn't really give me any good results. And finally, after a long and arduous journey, I was able to attach the skirt to the bodice. I also put in a zipper and attached the gem, which I forgot to film, but those were both boring anyway, so oh well. And for the grand reveal, I present to you Her Royal Highness Princess Peach, just in time for Halloween.